Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting, dramatic,
Yes.
emotional
Yes.
session of Truth Be Told.
Hey, everybody, we've gone Pentecostal on you.
Maybe we should retitle these sessions something like hopefully truth will be told.
Yes.
We say truth be told not as a claim, but as a desire.
Yes. Yes.
We're trying to tell the truth.
Yes. We're trying. Honestly, we are.
Today is session 61.
Wow.
And today is August the 17th, 2022. So today is my baby brother, Steve, his 65th birthday.
Wow.
And so his dear wife, Karen, is going to be making one of his favorite cakes to bring to church tonight. We're going to have cake after church.
Oh, nice.
It is a fruit cocktail cake. And it used to be a common kind of dessert that people would bring to potlucks. And Steve likes it real well.
Mm-hmm.
And
does it sit on top of a sponge cake of some kind?
I kind of forget. It's kind of mixed in a cake batter, I think.
Uh-huh.
It's real moist and lots of fruit through it. I don't even think it has frosting. I kind of forget. I haven't had it for years. Okay. Of course, I usually opt for chocolate cakes.
Yeah.
But Steve more prefers fruit kind of desserts. And so we're going to enjoy that tonight.
Oh, nice.
He's spending his 65th birthday working. He works for Granger, and this is a real busy time of year. Mm. And his wife's going to fix him a nice steak dinner before church tonight.
Oh, how nice.
She's going to bring a cake. And so it's, as I often tell people, I'm getting ready to turn 68. And most days I really don't feel old. Yeah. I went to the gym this morning, had a hard workout. Even when I look in the mirror, I don't think of myself as old.
You're not.
But when I see my baby brother, his hair getting thinner and his hair now turned gray, things like that. And he has lots of lower back issues like I've had through my life, but that's flared up this week. So he's, hobbling around. So at the End Times Bible study session last night at church that we taped, just seeing him in pain, and just so seeing your younger siblings looking older is what makes me feel old.
Yes, it's a reminder. Yes,
because I know I'm older than him. So, well, he has a real demanding job too, and he has a lot of property to take care of. So, in many ways, he has just a real busy, tough life. But he handles it well and is a valuable member of the church. And
he's such a good brother. He's such a good brother.
He's an excellent lay member of the church. That's
yes,
sure.
Yes, yeah.
So anyway, that's today. We're going to be up over 100 degrees probably today, and it looks like for the next 3 or 4 days, and then it's going to cool off to the mid to high 90s for about a week. But you know what? Labor Day is right around the corner.
Yeah.
And even in September and even early October, we can get into the 90s. But the daylight hours are less. Mornings and evenings are cooler. And so you can just kind of feel it, that it's this last gasp of triple digit weather, hopefully. And then we start seeing a little, September, you can get some days that are just down in the 80s,
yeah,
pleasant.
Yeah, here our days are getting shorter, so it's getting dusk earlier now.
I know you've had a hot summer, haven't you?
Oh, yes. I mean, hot for us.
Oh, you've had triple digits a few
We've
times,
had
haven't
triple
you?
digits,
You've
yeah.
had a lot of 90s this
A lot
summer.
of 90s, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you're really looking forward to Labor Day.
yes. I hope we get a nice fall where it cools down to the 70s,
Hmm.
low to middle
Yeah, you don't
70s.
want to go straight from this to winter, do you?
No, we want to ease into it. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, did we skip winter this year?
Extended fall time.
Yeah. Extended fall. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, your winters have been milder
They have.
recent years, huh?
Yes.
Than when you first moved there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
They've gotten milder. Yeah. Still
anyway,
at uh,
thank you all for watching these, and we would ask you, make a request that you would promote these, share
yes.
these. We don't care who watches these. It doesn't have to be Landmark Missionary Baptist. We want everyone to be exposed to what we see in the Bible. May not agree with it all, but at least it may cause people to research it further, study more, think more deeply about these things, and maybe even find a church that is more in agreement with the line of thinking you see in these videos. So feel free to share these. At the end of each video, we have our email address. So I'm Rick Howard, and Mike Maney is in Missoula, Montana. And feel free to have people email us with questions. I mean, we can, in future sessions, then we can incorporate the answers to those questions in our discussions. Would be glad to do that. We're going through the Old Testament looking for Christ. We're using Luke 24:27 as our text, beginning at Moses and all the prophets. He expounded of them in all the scriptures, the things concerning himself. So what is the Bible? What is a short description of the Bible? Even the Old Testament, because the Bible he was referring to in that passage was only the Old Testament. Right. A short description would be, it's a book concerning the things about him, about Christ. And that's what he said.
Exactly.
In all the scriptures, the things concerning himself. And, one of the things that's really helped me is if you develop a mindset of looking for Christ in all parts of the Bible, you'll find him. He's there everywhere, woven through the scriptures.
That's right.
And you do that with almost any subject, and you'll find that subject all through the Bible. It's funny how that works, where often you're studying a particular subject and all of a sudden you think, man, that's everywhere. Everywhere I look, that subject is there.
Yeah. Why didn't I see that?
Why didn't I see it before? For instance, I mentioned, I think in last session, the use of the number 7, how often the number 7 is used in the building of the tabernacle, the setting up of the priesthood, the sacrifices, and so much of it has to do with the number 7. And then when you get into prophetic scriptures, you get into Revelation, and number 7 is everywhere.
Yes.
And I mentioned how that the number 7, we say it's the number of completeness or perfection, but it's deeper than that. The number 7 in Hebrew is connected to the same root as the word swear and oath.
Yeah.
And so sheba with an E, sometimes people pronounce with a V like Victor instead of a B. So Sheba or Shiva, and then you change it to A, Shaba, or I, Shiba, Sheba, Shiba. The variations of that root word is then translated as to swear or to pronounce an oath, to make a vow. And so one reason why God uses the number 7 so often, especially in prophetic scripture, it's kind of like a background way of repeating over and over and over again. I made a vow, and I am faithful to keep my vows and promises, and I will keep them, and I will bring them to pass.
Mhm.
And so by the multitude of uses of the number 7, God is saying to us repeatedly, remember those promises I made way back there? I'm going to keep them, and nothing's going to stop me. And the Antichrist is going to try to stop me. Satan's going to try to stop me. This wicked world's going to try to stop me. Even my own people are going to try to stop me at different times. But I will bring it to pass. It shall be done. And
I like your thought on oath. And what thoughts ran through my head was, when you make an oath or an agreement, let's say a covenant, or you're finalizing it in your mind. That swearing of an oath is like the final act of it. And so we think of 7 as completion. We think of once an oath is made, that the concepts of it or the words of it, the contractual part of it is settled. It's finalized. It's completed. The parties have settled on it. So I like that concept of oath. It's finality to it.
And the way it's formalized often in the Bible is in the form of blood.
Yes.
Bloodshed.
Yeah.
And then becomes a covenant.
Yeah.
And then the terms of the covenant are the various parts of the oath.
Mm-hmm.
And then God swears to it. And that's why we love that passage in Hebrews so much, because he could swear by none greater. He swore by himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
By 2 immutable truths.
Yeah.
We can be sure that his promises will be kept.
Mm-hmm.
And so the number 7 incorporates that idea, the underlying important truth all through the Bible. And that's why, we say the most important attribute of God is love. God is love. And I would not argue with that. But I would say that's kind of like 1A.
Yeah.
And then 1B would be his faithfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both connected together.
Mm-hmm.
But if God is not faithful to keep his promises, we're doomed.
Mm-hmm.
But he is capable, able, and faithful to keep his promises.
Well, that goes along with, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But God is love. Well, that goes along with one of the, I think, basic understandings of the Hebrew word for love is what's packed into that concept is loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you express love, really expressing a loyalty to that object. And so for God is love, God is loyal. He's going to keep his word right down to the end.
That's a perfect way to connect those two, Mike.
Yeah.
Love and his faithfulness.
Yeah.
His loyalty is born out of his love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all he asks is our loyalty to him and not worship other deities, but to love him back. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one,
that's how the 10 Commandments start. The 10 Commandments start with this loyalty to God.
Yes.
And then loyalty to your family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's a good way of looking at the 10 Commandments. We look at them as commandments, obligations and things.
Yeah.
But all he's really trying to express in the 10 Commandments is be loyal.
Be loyal.
Be loyal to God. Be loyal to your family. Be loyal to your community of faith.
Yeah.
Whether it be the nation of Israel or the church.
Yeah.
Just be loyal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an important thing in life. So not only is the number 7 incorporated so much into prophecy and into the priesthood and sacrifices and all that we may look at some today, but in his calendar, in God's calendar. Mm-hmm. So every time they looked at a calendar, if they had one on a wall, they would see, okay, every 7th day is the Sabbath. We're supposed to observe the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. And then when he gave it in Exodus 20, when he talks about remembering the Sabbath, he says it's to remind you that God created everything in 6 days and he rested on the 7th. Mm-hmm. And so one purpose of the Sabbath is every 7th day, they were to remember his faithfulness to keep his promises. Mm-hmm. They were to meditate on a God who is faithful. He loves them. He's loyal to them. He's loyal to himself. So part of the purpose of the Sabbath being the 7th day is to impress on them at least one day every week to meditate on the faithfulness of God to keep his oath that he made to their fathers.
Yeah.
So we often, we emphasize other parts of the purpose of the Sabbath, but what I just said may be the most important part.
Yeah,
Is a
and then it's
reflection on God and his promises.
yeah, and then it's layered in. So if you have every seven Sabbaths, it's a resetting of the economy,
Mm-hmm.
and then every 49 is a resetting of the land. So every week it's a resetting of your soul, your life.
And what is that resetting? You're resetting yourself to God's promises that he made.
Yes.
And your obedience to keep loyalty to him.
Yeah.
And so this idea of 7 built into their calendar in days of the week, the 7th month, the most holy month of their 3 final holy feast days, the final feast celebration of tabernacles is 7 days, and then the 8th day of celebration, because 8 being the first of a new set of 7 is the number of new creation, new things. And so we say that there are 7 days, the 7th being the millennial, the time of rest and the removal of curses and all of that the millennial will be a 1,000-year 7th day reflection on the promises of God, because they're coming to pass before our very eyes.
Yes.
And then the 8th day being the eternal age, the new creation. So like you say, he layered it, not just, he built it into just how their entire life was structured in time, with the Jubilee, as you mentioned, and then the Sabbath year. And that's one reason why God became so angry with them and sent them into Babylonian captivity, is they had violated the Sabbath years. They had violated 70 Sabbath years, 490 years, which coincidentally just happens to be exactly the time from the first migration into Babylon back to the coronation of Saul as king. So evidently, as soon as they demanded the king and God gave them their wish, and Samuel told them, this is what having a king will require. He's going to require your sons and your daughters as servants. He's going to require your food to feed all the people in his palace, those visiting him. He's going to require taxes. He's going to require animals, all sorts of things. And evidently, when the reality of that hit them, they decided, well, we can't afford to let the land rest every 7 years. Now we have added burden on us. Instead of trusting God to still supply, they decided we just have to quit keeping the Sabbath year. And they did
so glad we don't have a king like that, aren't you?
So they violated 70 Sabbath years for 490 years, which is the underlying easy to prove and understand reason why God gave Daniel the prophecy of the 77's future. See, because 490 years passed of the 70 Sabbath year violations, 490 years. He says, okay, now I'm going to give you a time clock into the future of that same time amount, 77s. And in that that vision, that prophecy to Daniel that he gave, he's basically saying, by the use of 77s, I'm going to make a set of promises in this vision, in this prophecy, that the rest of the Bible will be the outworking of these promises.
Yes.
And I guarantee you, with the return of my son, they will come to pass.
Yeah. I like how you broke that down, the 490 and the 490. That's like the first
past and future.
Yeah, the first 490 led up to their they were rebellious, and it led up to their captivity, and they were just moving further and further from God. The second 490 will lead up to their cleansing or their forgiveness.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
It's exactly a good way to put it.
yeah.
But in that second 490 of the future, they will again rebel and not be loyal to God,
Yes.
even to the point that they will cut off their Messiah.
Yes.
They will kill him.
Yes.
That's how bad off they will be.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's such a violation of that 77s that at the 69th 7, they will murder their Messiah, that it's such a dramatic violation. God cuts off that 70th
Yes.
from the 69
Yes.
and saves that last set of 7 years for the distant future that we call the time of Jacob's trouble. We call the tribulation period. The 70th week of Daniel is set apart from the 69. And there's a long gap of time between the two. Now, a lot of people don't believe this. They think it's continued immediately after the 69, but then they don't know where to stop it. You know, is it the stoning of Stephen? Is it the Cornelius? You know, because that prophecy has a pretty major dramatic conclusion described at the end of the 70. Yet, if you make it continuous after the 69, there doesn't seem to be anything. I mean, those are big events, but they're not as dramatic as what it builds up to be.
Yes. Yeah.
So it can only be the return of Christ. And they didn't really understand the separation. They didn't understand the two comings and the long separation of time between the two comings. So that was kind of difficult for them to grasp. But that's how it ended up working out. And one way it is worked out is by separating that 70th from the 69th.
Yeah.
So, you know, but we can keep, you know, continue in this whole idea of, 7 being an oath or a vow, swearing, making promises. When John the Baptist came along and said, I baptize you in water, but he who's coming after me will baptize you in the Holy Spirit. And then that was a vow made by the hand of God through John the Baptist. And then Jesus repeated it before he left. Tarry in Jerusalem until the promise of the Father comes on you. Okay, there's the vow. It's a promise of the Father.
Yeah.
When was that promise kept? 7 times 7, 7 Sabbath days, and then plus 1. Because Pentecost was always on a Sunday. But it's at 7 times 7. Okay, I made a promise. Here's the proof I'm going to keep my promise. It's going to happen 7 times 7 plus 1. So again, that principle that's built into the feast days of 7 plus 1 equals 8. You know, the new beginnings and new things.
Yes.
And so that promise was kept on the Pentecost, 7 Sabbaths after he left, or 7 Sabbaths after. I shouldn't say after he left. 7 Sabbaths after the first fruits.
After the resurrection.
After the resurrection, yeah. Inclusive. So that's why it could still be on a Sunday. Anyway, we could go all over the Bible with 7s. You know, you get in a Revelation with the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets and the 7 vials of wrath. Like there's many 7s in the book of Revelation.
Yes.
And so the closing book of the Bible, full of prophetic truth about the return of Christ and building up to it, being full of 7s, is simply God screaming out, like shouting to us.
Right.
This is the proof that all those many promises I made in centuries past are now coming to fruition. And he does it by the use of 7. So I know I've kind of beat this to death in some senses, but we could go into a lot of details of the uses of 7.
Yeah.
But it's used in, like, when Aaron and his sons were purified to start their priestly office. They separated themselves for 7 days. And then the 8th day, they were officially able to begin their priestly service. So we could just find example after example of this. And my main reason in bringing all this up is I encourage, because I've not done this myself. It's what I'm doing it as much for myself as for the viewers.
Mhm.
I encourage all of you that when you come across the number 7 in the Bible, especially in prophetic scripture, let this still small voice in the back of your mind whisper to you, God's keeping a promise.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
he does it partly by using 7 so often.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
anyway,
Yes.
I hope I've emphasized that enough.
And on top of that, or along with that, if any of our viewers want maybe say material that you have prepared, I think you've prepared material on the number 7. So go
I
ahead and
sent a
email.
handout. Yeah, last week I sent just a 1-page handout talking about this. And so
Mhm.
everyone on the mailing list got it. But if anyone views this and you would like that little 1-page study handout, I didn't even go into the feast days or the Sabbath years or anything, just
Mhm.
kind of generally introducing this idea of 7 being connected to the word vow and swear, making an
Mhm.
oath,
Mhm.
and that God's promises. Then email me and I'll send it to you.
And maybe even ask to be on that mailing list, so they'll just get all of the updates.
Everything I send out.
Mhm.
For instance, we're in the book of Exodus. We're going through the instructions of building the tabernacle and setting up the priesthood and the sacrifices. So in Exodus 22, and he's talking about the offer your first fruits, offer the first ripe of your produce and animals and so forth. And in verse 29, he says, the firstborn of your sons you shall give to me, the idea of the firstborn sons.
Mhm.
But how does he, in a practical way, how does he seal this deal with them so that it becomes a covenant idea,
Mhm.
or it becomes an oath with 2 parties, swearing to it?
Mhm.
In verse 30, likewise you shall do with your oxen and your sheep. It shall be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day you shall give it to me. So they 7 plus 1. I mean, it's really all through the Bible.
Mhm.
And so the idea of making a promise and then committing and fulfilling the promise is the idea of the 8th. Is, once that 7 idea has been completed, let it be an 8th day of keeping that promise. And you shall be holy men to me. You shall not eat any meat which is torn by beast in the field. You shall throw it to the dogs. So example after example of this. The 7 bowl lampstand or candlestick in the tabernacle. This idea of he is the light of the world, and as the light of the world, he's made promises, and he will come back as the light of the world. And the across from that lampstand was the table of showbread with the 12 loaves, representing the 12 tribes of Israel. And that lampstand is the idea that God's light is shining on his people.
Mhm.
And it's a beautiful idea.
It is, yes.
And that, and there's a particular kind of idea used often throughout the Old Testament, that God's desire to bless them is described as God shining his face on them.
Mhm.
And God being angry with them and bringing judgment on them is often described as God hiding his face from them. And that is shown in the holy place with the lampstand and the 12 loaves of bread. He wants to shine his face on his people.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is beautiful.
It's just
Yes.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And not just shine his face, but fulfill his promises that he made you those 12 loaves.
Mhm.
And yet, most of the time, they did not deserve that light, and he hid his face from them. So that's just a terrible thing to think about, God hiding his face from us.
Yeah.
Because it's so visual, isn't it? So graphic.
It is.
I
Yes.
want God to shine his face on me.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
let me see. Do I have any other? I need to kind of move off this, but it kind of got stuck in my mind. So I had a few verses jotted down that kind of show this. Even with the when Aaron and his sons were consecrated in chapter 29, I already mentioned this, but in verse 35, thus you shall do to Aaron and his sons according to all that I have commanded you. 7 days you shall consecrate them, and you shall offer a bull every day. So it'd be 7 bulls. As a sin offering for atonement, you shall cleanse the altar when you make atonement for it. You shall anoint it and sanctify it. 7 days you shall make atonement for the altar, sanctify it. The altar shall be most holy. Whatever touches the altar must be holy.
Mm.
So just kind of, again, underline the promises, the oath that he's making through this priesthood and through the sacrifices of a demand for holiness.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, part of the purpose of Jesus coming back again is to bring holiness into this wicked and dark world.
Mm-hmm.
He'll shine as a light.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So if we got out of concordance and started looking up the number 7 and looked at all the examples in the Old and New Testament, would find hundreds of them. It's almost like a secret code from God woven all through the scriptures
Mm-hmm.
of this like almost broken record of remember my promises.
Mm-hmm.
I will keep my vows.
Mm-hmm.
As you go through the scriptures, continually remember that God is a promise making God and God is a promise keeping God. And I'm showing it by throwing all these 7s at you. Everywhere you turn in the Bible, there's a 7 somewhere.
Something just occurred to me, and I really don't know, but how many colors are there in the rainbow? I'm just curious.
You're asking the wrong person.
Okay.
I know I have been told or read that at some point,
Uh-huh.
but I cannot tell you right now.
I just wondered. I mean, you think of keeping a promise, and you think of the rainbow is there to remind if there's not 7 colors in the thing. I honestly don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if there were 7 colors.
Well, some of our viewers will say, I learned that in kindergarten. Don't you know anything? The primary colors, secondary colors,
Yeah,
you blend the primary colors together to get the secondary colors.
Yeah.
All
Well, yes, to our viewers, please comment in this session today, number 61, and let us know how many colors there are in the rainbow.
I'll read one more because this is in Exodus 24 is when the covenant is confirmed. And Moses took blood in verse 6, put it in basins. Half the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And in verse 7, he took the book of the covenant, read it in the hearing of the people. They said, all that the Lord has said, we will do, be obedient. Moses took the blood, sprinkled it on the people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that would be a very pleasant experience, would it? Have blood sprinkled all over you. But he was sealing the covenant.
Mm-hmm.
Behold the blood of the covenant. Where do you think Jesus got the idea for that term in the Lord's Supper?
Mm-hmm.
This is the blood of the covenant.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
think he got it back here in Exodus 24?
Yes.
Oh, the Bible's so unified, borrowing
Yes.
terms from each other. Of course, Jesus is the one who gave this terminology to Moses to use. Behold the blood of the covenant which the Lord has made with you according to all these words. So then Moses goes up into the mountain again. And this is like the 5th time, I think, that he goes up the mountain. And then if we skip down to verse 15, or verse 14, Aaron and Hur were with him. And in verse 15, then Moses went up into the mountain and a cloud covered the mountain. So this cloud idea is really important in the scriptures, really central in the return of Christ. It comes in the clouds. It comes with clouds. We join him in the clouds. All this idea of clouds is found back here at Mount Sinai. And then it became, it was also the cloud that led them through the wilderness.
Yes.
So
Yes.
cloud is a really important idea in the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
That God is described as he who rides on the clouds, is the cloud rider.
Yes. And when Jesus comes back, he's going to be a cloud rider as
He
well.
will be a cloud rider and a head crusher.
And
I like that combination.
Yes.
Because that's an idea used in the scriptures. And
yes. Yeah.
But then, so in verse 16, the glory of the Lord rested on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And on the seventh day, he called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. Boy, that's like you could spiritualize that and symbolize that, and allegorize that, run with it.
Mm-hmm.
Of God is still speaking to us out of the midst of the cloud. And that's where his son will return. And this is almost like a continuation of it, the sight of the glory of the Lord. When Christ comes, that voice of an archangel, the trump of God, the shout, and all of those verses in the New Testament, he comes on the clouds, and what are the people going to see?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to see the glory of the Lord like a consuming fire.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, too late.
Too late.
Yeah. On the top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. So Moses went into the midst of the cloud, went into the mountain, up into the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So that's the number of testing. But again, this idea of this is the seventh day that God spoke to him in his glory like a consuming fire,
Mm-hmm.
because the covenant was being sealed. And what is the covenant? A set of promises that God made.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to keep those promises. So he made sure that he did not speak or appear to Moses during the first 6 days. He waited till the seventh day.
Yes. Yes.
Because of the importance that number carries in scripture about
Yes.
God making and keeping his promises.
Amen. That's right.
What else can we say about this, Mike?
This is rich, brother. This is really rich.
Well, it is rich, and I should have maybe prepared more detailed, looked at more scriptures throughout the Bible, but we've mentioned a lot of them that we're familiar with, and probably if we allowed ourselves, we could just think of a whole bunch more.
Well, you mentioned Jesus when he instituted, the Passover there, the blood of the covenant. So it's all Hebraic. It's rooted in Hebrew, in the Hebrew people, of the loins of Abraham. So it's all rooted there. Jesus came from that stock. He's not going to violate anything that was previously laid down. He's going to enhance it and develop it and fulfill it. And so when he uses those expressions, it's very Hebraic, isn't it? It's right out of the Old Testament, because he's fulfilling those promises.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
So next week, I think you mentioned maybe a couple of sessions ago about, and I think you're leading up to that, is the craftsmen or artisans.
Yeah, that's why the silence. I was wondering if I should go into that or not. That deserves a whole session to itself.
Let's do that.
Yeah, because there's a lot there,
Mm-hmm.
more than meets the eye at first.
Mm-hmm.
This man, Bezalel, we're going to talk about Bezalel.
Okay.
As the master of the craftsmen.
Yes.
He was the head superintendent, the foreman,
mm-hmm.
And he's a picture of Christ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about him and some of the others and what they did and how God was directing them and all of that. And that's very deserving of its entire session itself. So I think we'll just encourage our viewers, listeners to do further study on this connection of the number 7 to God, making oaths, promises, vows, and swearing. I mean, I think I had this in that handout document I sent out, but when Abraham and Abimelech made that covenant with each other, they dug a well, and they named it Beersheba. There's that Sheba, that 7, and it means well of. Some of you may even have the center column footnote or something. It means well of the 7 or well of the oath. So there's that idea of 7. They entered into an agreement with each other. And that word Sheba is the word for 7.
Very good. Very good. Well, I can hardly wait for that next segment.
Yeah, I mentioned a session or two ago that we might only have several more sessions in the Torah, in the first 5 books written by Moses, Pentateuch, and then maybe move on to something else. But I got a few responses of people hoping we would stay with this longer. So evidently, because we don't get much feedback, do we?
No. Yeah.
It's kind of like I've told other pastors through the years, because I learned by experience. They're going to host a meeting or something, and they say, in order for us to plan properly for the food, please RSVP how many will be coming. And you get hardly any response, and then 100 people show up and you're expecting 10, So always plan for more, because a lot of people do not RSVP. Well, we don't get a lot of responses to these videos. We just hope they're a blessing to everyone. But
yes.
I did get a few responses from that, saying that they're enjoying what we're doing in these Old Testament books. And, I think it's probably a set of lessons that most people only surface level, maybe just in passing, people are being told, look for Christ everywhere, maybe give a few examples in the Old Testament. But in this kind of detail of simply just taking our time and going through these chapters and books, showing where Christ is just maybe a different approach than what people have been exposed to in their own experience. And so they're enjoying this kind of a change of looking at these familiar stories and Bible characters, and we're just looking at them from a little different angle. And so we may end up with 100 sessions before we get through Deuteronomy. Who knows?
Your outlines, though, originally when you preached it to the church, did go deeper in or further into the Pentateuch, right? You did close out in Deuteronomy.
Yeah, actually, I think I closed out just a few sermons in Leviticus.
Okay.
So you may have to help me develop some more in Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy.
Oh, you want our subscribers to go from 84 down to 4 then?
Mike, you are more than capable. There is a reason why through the years I've sent so much material to you to maniaze for me and send it back to me in a much prettier, organized, readable fashion before I send it out to other people. So don't try to downplay your abilities. Just because I am using my outlines that I used for sermons here at Liberty as a basis, so I'm doing most of the speaking, doesn't mean that you are not just capable, but you've done a lot of this yourself through the years. And so
Well, appreciate that, brother.
When we get the Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, if we continue with this, people will be hearing much more from you.
Mhm.
And then our subscribers will jump up to in the 90s somewhere, probably.
One could only hope. And back to those few comments that we do, that what feedback we do get, it is so few that if someone does comment, your comment is moved right to the top.
So when we do get an email or a comment, a reply of some type on these sessions, in our minds, that single reply speaks for the whole group.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Whether it does or not.
Right.
We just assume that others feel the same way.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, when you see our emails, probably by this time of the video, you've already seen it. Then drop us a line. Let us know how far off we are, or maybe once in a while you actually enjoy a video.
Mhm. Yes.
Let us know.
Yes.
Even though we are old and gray and I'm bald headed and all that, we do appreciate encouragement and edification once in a
Yes. Yeah, we do actually. Yes. We're vain that way.
while. We don't want to just send this out into cyberspace hoping that a Martian watches it and doesn't know how to reply, God bless all of you. Thanks for watching in these sessions, and pray for us, because we're not just wanting to share information for reasons other than to edify you and to encourage you to consider what we say. Maybe it will help you develop lessons and sermons and grow in your own spiritual life.
Yeah.
But we also, truthfully, are wanting to use these as an outreach.
Mhm.
So share these with your Protestant friends, with
Mhm.
your friends who maybe read the Bible or interested. Maybe they're saved or not saved. We don't know.
Mhm.
But maybe this will draw them further into the faith.
Mhm.
And we would love to use these as discipleship.
Well, sure. And as Brother Tasso pointed out, the emphasis or the importance of the Old Testament, which is what we're primarily in, so that maybe some of our viewers, their pastors, really don't delve into the Old Testament much. And so maybe you have a friend who's pastor who their church really doesn't deal with the Old Testament. Yes, absolutely share these with them and help them out as well.
Well, I hope by next session we'll be able to talk about cooler weather.
Oh, I hope so.
We won't be able to talk about cooler politics, because I think that's going to remain hot.
Yeah, that's heating up
It's
always.
heating
Yes.
up, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is. Well over 100.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, thank
all
you,
of
brother. Thank you. All right. Take care, everybody.